Welcome. Thank you for joining me, for tuning in, and for seeing what I'm up to this week. The thing that I was going to cover, or am going to cover, and I hope you'll log in or send questions or acknowledge back, what yours may be. But what I'd like to talk about are when we get caught in patterns and circles, right? You're traveling in circles and you think you're going in a straight line, but you're actually doing that loop-de-loop thing. So a couple weeks ago, I was traveling, and one of our plane rides, we were held over. We couldn't land because of whatever the traffic situation was at this particular airport. And as we were going around, it occurred to me that this was a lot like life. We're expecting to be at a certain destination at a certain time, and yet we haven't arrived yet. And now we're being told that that's not going to happen anyway, at least not in the time being, that there'll be a little delay. And that happens across all lives, as far as I know. We can hope for that straight trajectory or the straight shot through things, but we're inevitably going to be diverted, or we're going to be distracted maybe by something amazing, and our attention just goes somewhere else. So as we were up there in the holding pattern, it just sorry, I'm a little distracted because there's a spider coming straight at me on the wall. It's really cute. Luckily, it's not this big honking one, but see, distractions. I just said distractions, and there we go. Out of the corner of my eye, I wasn't quite sure what was coming at me. Or if it was in this realm, quite frankly. So in the holding pattern process, we may not even be able to acknowledge the fact that we're in one, because when you're inside of it and you're in that circular motion, it can be a little bit like a merry-go-round, where you get dizzy and you can't see around you, and you are maybe just trying to find your drishti, your focal point, or you're trying to find solid ground because you don't know where you left it. So I think it's always important to look at our patterns. Obviously, I love patterns. So, and I love identifying them, because I feel like they're this shortcut to understanding who we are, if you're just willing to follow yourself around a little bit. So a holding pattern is when usually stubbornness has gotten involved. Like, not only is it difficult to see, but maybe there's a certain aspect of you that you just don't want to admit it. You don't want to look into what it would take to change that pattern either. And it's fine. It really is. Except if there's a circumstance of abuse or anything like that, I think it's fine to take our time to understand who we are. Listen, you have plenty of lifetimes. You'll get to it all. But if someone brings to you an example of where you may be repeating things over and over again, and you can look at your relationships and see that the same type of people are showing up over and over again, that would be an example of a holding pattern. Or you keep getting the same boss even though you change jobs. Or you keep running into the same poor financial decisions, and you just haven't looked at how are you contributing, and what's that pattern. So the empowering part of all of this is by acknowledging where things are not feeling so great in your life. You can then look to see, what is a pattern I can create that is supportive in order to move forward. So for instance, one of the holding patterns I've been in probably my entire stinking life is just absolutely loving pretzels and crackers and rice cakes. I know you can love rice cakes. I love rice cakes. But the refined carbs are definitely, my system doesn't like them. I like them, but my system doesn't like them. And the scale wasn't moving. So I'm like, okay, what are you doing, Vicki? Every other area was on point. So I knew I had to look at that. Well, this last week, and I'm doing really well for a couple of weeks. This last week, I'm pulling out of, I don't know, some driveway. I don't even know where I was. And I remember thinking, just go up the street. You can get some kind of sugar, some kind of refined carb, and oh, that'll feel so good. Well, this was my subconscious reminding me that, okay, my brain and the chemistry did get a hit off of it. It's probably why I never did drugs or anything. I just, had to have some crackers. So as I'm sitting there though, I was very consciously aware that I was in an old pattern, and it was one I had committed to myself that I would shift, and I was the only one who could shift that. Nobody was buying this stuff for me or forcing me to eat it. So when I had that little conversation with myself, and I made a left out of the driveway instead of the right to wherever the store was that I would have gone to, I felt really good about myself, because at least in that moment, and we stack the moments, right? They're not all an epiphany or where all of a sudden we're so good at something. At least in that moment, I was really proud of the fact that I kept a commitment to myself. And what that did was that took my brain out of the holding pattern. It recognized it was not always going to get its way. And that's not to say that I'm not going to bump up against that. I know I will. And that's not to say I wouldn't ever have crackers again. It's just at this time in my life, I need to do a little purge. So those holding patterns show up in any area where you feel you're not moving forward, any area where you feel like you're stuck or that you're not excelling. Look for the holding pattern. Look for the very thing that you created the loop-de-loop around, and then look at it by asking the questions of, how is this serving me? We don't do anything unless it's serving us. And I know that sounds very ass backwards, that I would do something, but hey, it wouldn't be called self-sabotage if there wasn't an action with it. So look at how is this serving me? Is it keeping me in a place of old belief that, I can't be funny, successful, and thin? Hey, it could be. Or that, I can't surpass people before me, whatever that message that might be in there is, it's going to be so individual for all of us. Listen to your heart. Your heart will tell you what's going on in there. If you can't see it, come see me. I'll help you identify it, point it out. Maybe take it in through the back door. Sometimes we have to sneak up on those beliefs and reveal them in order for somebody to be able to say, yeah, that's what it feels like. It resonates. It always has to resonate, or, I can't push my beliefs of your beliefs on you. So if you start questioning what's not coming to fruition, or you're feeling frustrated about, and you recognize you might be a little stubborn in that you don't want to let go of these patterns because they're comfortable, they're what you know, they're what the outcome's going to be. So if you eat something that is not good for you and you feel awful afterwards, well, there's another level of beating yourself up in some regard, that although it might not sound like it feels good, maybe it lines up with what you grew up with. So that is so familiar to you that there's a sense of comfort around that. And yes, it's convoluted, but that the brain is amazing. Your subconscious, the same subconscious that popped up in my car that said, just go get whatever that gluten-free refined carb is that's going to feel so good to your brain, is the same subconscious that I can have a dream and have an awareness about myself through that dream because it's working for me on the other side. So it's not that it's horrible, it just needs to be directed in a way that we're living more in a conscious mind in that moment, being able to catch it to say, no, that is not what's going to feel good. Maybe going home and I have figured out how to make the Starbucks protein drink that they have now to a T. Oh, I got it down to a science. Go home and make one of those, right? Because then I'm getting the nutrients that my body's really looking for. It was just looking for the quick shot of energy at that point. So the being conscious about it means that there's less and less chance that that subconscious is going to show up in that sabotaging way. So each time you acknowledge what isn't working for you, that amount of power that your subconscious, hey Jane, has, hey Deb, becomes smaller and smaller, and you're living more from the present conscious, completely engaged life. And if you can tell that there's a pattern there, but you don't want to acknowledge it, like you can literally feel yourself avoiding it, maybe go to the the devil's advocate side of saying, well, what's the worst thing that could happen if I'm honest with myself here and I admit that I no longer want to be in this relationship, or that I no longer want to sit on the couch waiting for a magic pill that's going to help me be stronger, straighter, calmer, healthier, whatever the is that you're talking about. So what could be the worst case scenario? But when you address that, whether it's divorce, you feel good, so you feel like you have to maintain it, and that seems like a lot of work. It is sometimes. It very much is sometimes, but the reward is worth it. Whatever it is, you will feel empowered by actually taking that step of looking at it to see what's the worst case scenario. Because if you look at the worst case scenario, everything else is better, right? Everything else is less scary, maybe. So what are some of the things that those of you that are on right now, if you'd like to chime in, what are some of the holding patterns that you've recognized yourself in? If you want to chime in. If not, I'll just keep going. Oh, Lord knows we can talk. The definition of a holding pattern is doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Similar to the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So the holding pattern is doing it over and over and over again, but not doing anything to change it until such time that you pop out of the whirlpool and you change the direction of your life. So with the acknowledgement that this is very much it's a human dynamic. I mean, we learn to walk because we practiced over and over and over again. We learn to write or to speak because we keep practicing. So it would make sense that our brain likes that repetitive action, but the same repetitive action that helps us, run a little bit faster or read a little bit more, it is the same thing that sabotages us. So Amanda and I actually just talked about carbs and stuff, and doing that, starting a diet over and over again instead of changing the lifestyle. So prevalent, right? Or the diet industry wouldn't be a probably trillion by now industry, because it seems like if you just try a new way, it's got to be the easier way rather than what we what we inherently know to do or have been taught to do, and it just seemed like a lot of work. But like, I know Amanda's been walking every morning. Oh, I hope you're feeling better. But she's been walking every morning, and I don't know for sure, but having been there, I bet, and having still been still there, there's that little critic in the brain that that says that there's a no point, just stay home, or this is going to be harder, or there's a it's just going to take longer to get to the goal because the goal is maybe too big and we need to make it incremental. So Jane is experiencing lag time. So maybe that's your holding pattern, Jane. Your internet is just going around and around in circles. Are you getting the little circle? Because that would be a perfect metaphor for this section. But so in the example of let's do self-care, oftentimes we'll maybe sign up for a class, but then not go to all of them, or buy the DVDs or buy the equipment and not use them, or get a package of massages and then not show up to all of them. It takes unwinding. It takes being able to look at why you're getting in your own way. Listen, there's no billboard, I've said this before, there's no billboard that's going up that's going to announce why you didn't do something. So stop worrying about what other people are going to think about that, and end your own holding pattern so that you can, fly freely about this universe in the body and in the lifestyle that you would like to experience. So, for this week, if you would take a look at and be conscious of when you're in that holding pattern, and when you're repeating habits that are no longer serving you, like your soul self, your heart self says you want more. And that could be making your bed every morning. Lord knows I resisted that till I moved into a condo where you can't walk down the hallway without seeing my bedroom. So short of shutting the door, I make my bed every morning. And who knew it was so easy? But like, it can be something along those lines, where doing the slightest gift for yourself and increases your vibration, it increases your joy of life. And honestly, I think it really makes life easier. I think we spend so much energy avoiding looking at things that if we just looked at them, we could either create a solution to moving through them, or we could decide that it's really not a big issue and move on. So this week, be your own pilot. Be in charge of your own airstrip. That's even better. Be in charge of your own airstrip, and you be air traffic control. You be watching for the the crashes, that if you're not in a holding pattern, that if you are in a holding pattern and you suddenly break out of, that it would cause a crash. So and then take one action, one stepping point, one commitment to yourself of what you will do. So maybe that's, instead of jumping out of whatever eating plan that you're doing, maybe you give it 3 or 4 more days, because the subconscious also will try to boot us out of something that's going well for us, because it recognizes we're moving to another level, and will often try to sabotage there too. So one step, and then be proud of yourself for that one step. And then I want to see all your airplanes flying all over the country, all over the world, and being proud of who you are. So I am, have a great weekend. I'm off. And if there's any questions or anything you need an accountability partner, send me a text or email, Facebook Messenger. Please don't do Instagram. I never check that messenger place. So you're not going to get, your answer is going to be longer, because I'm just not going to check another place. So that's me getting out of a holding pattern of feeling obligated to get back to everything. So I hope you have a great weekend. For those of you who have Monday off, congratulations. And I will see you in September. Bye.